So many of you may have heard me say that we're not meeting the minimum requirements to be a human in this reality. And that might come off a little weird to some people. What the hell do you mean? We've been here for as long as we've been here, generation by generation. We keep pushing on, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But when you look at what has been done to us, what continues to be done to us, it is constant cycles of some very unpleasant things, from war and pestilence and killing and just all of the horrible things that mankind does to each other. It has a source, and it's in the context that I'm about to explain it to you. It's not necessarily the devil and his minions. It's us. And this is a thing that I think a lot of people don't want to accept. They may not want to hear and would scoff. But I think it's fair to say that there are minimum requirements to live and to be and to exist in this reality with the level of evil that is incarnated and boots on the ground with us. Because they exist, because they do what they do, because evil has never been ridded, hey, yeah, education. We have never ridded ourselves from the evil upon the earth. Well, evil does things, and it doesn't have any rules that it plays by that you or I would think. It damn sure doesn't play by the rules that we play by. It does diabolical, devious, dastardly, underhanded things. It lies, steals, cheats, deceives, and just, all of the things. And it knows evil, the evil ones, whatever. I'm not trying to be actually ambiguous. They understand how humans operate. There's theories that I've put forth about the God above putting us down here with evil that it knew was here when we got here. I get it, and that still stands. There is some interesting thought processes that go along with that. But complain and whine and moan, and all that stuff. All we want. That's what this God did to us. Or recognize that there are minimum requirements for us to also exist here and not be devoured, consumed, taken over by the evil. And all of this falls on our shoulders. All of it. Like all of it. And this is what I mean. We're not meeting the minimum requirements. Now I'm going to put forth some ideas that I think are quite relevant for what, a base level of meeting those minimum requirements would look like for mankind. And most people are going to want to hear it because it means that all humans would have to do a lot of work that they haven't done before on things that are hard. It would be a lot less entertainment for kind of a little while until everybody kind of got the hang of it. And sadly, because everybody's in the condition that they're in, good luck getting anybody, or everybody, good luck getting everybody on the same page with this stuff. Everything that I'm going to present is from a very logical and analytical perspective, looking at the layers of reality that I've been looking at for about 6 or 7 years, give or take. I've identified certain things. I've identified certain things in the Matrix, the Cabal, and the blah, 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 okay. But I've also recognized that we're also playing a part down here. And, there are minimum requirements, and I'll get to that in a minute. The fact that we're not meeting these minimum requirements provides, in some ways, like a backdoor entry point to the most important components of us. Consider this. When certain people tell you about the human design, they'll tell it to you in terms of mind, body, and spirit. Well, 2 of the 3 of those are non-physical, are they not? It lends itself to, when you start to think about it, there's an awful lot of work that we must do on the non-physical components that comprise our very being. Because it's the fact that these components of the vast majority of us are in effectively their default state. They've never been grown, developed, educated, and other such things for most people. Like a muscle that you've never worked out. It's there, it serves a purpose for you to move a digit or something, but it's not really that strong. It's relatively weak until you start working the muscle. Similar principle, same overlay for the non-physical components of us. It's really strange that we, as the beings that we are, do not realize that this type of effort and work and development of ourselves is necessary to live in this reality, because the evil that's here understands this about us and capitalizes on all of it. It capitalizes on the fact that we don't know this. It capitalizes on the fact that we don't do this, because it understands how easy we are to manipulate when we are in that default state, if you will. We effectively, because of our lack of meeting these minimum requirements, in a weird sort of way, give the evil permission to do to us what it is that they're doing to us in a weird sort of way. And I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm just saying our lack of ability, our lack of knowledge, and this stuff isn't rocket science. That's the thing. I think something got in the way of development of the human being a long time ago, and we started to lose this. And it's just progressively gotten worse generation by generation. We have lost an understanding and a comprehension of ourselves, of what we are, the type of being that we are, in the most fundamental of ways. Now, I truly believe that the totality of what it is that I'm going to put forth here would be something that would resemble a evolutionary leap in consciousness. It could be a mini jump, but a bit of a jump for the collective. If in fact there was a way to present this to everybody where they're like, oh, wow, okay. And we got all of it with enough people and effort, it could quite literally, and it might take a little bit of time, create what you would refer to as an evolutionary leap in consciousness, because the level that we would then be at to simply meet these minimum requirements would be a couple of steps up from where we are now for sure, and possibly one of those little mini leaps. And it's not, it's just in our consciousness, in our awareness of ourselves as the very beings that we are. I think that when you start to realize, relevant to our mind, which is the place where our spirit sits in the pilot seat, so to speak. It's the place where our consciousness kind of lives, in the mind, within the conscious mind. Then the subconscious mind, and the myriad of things that go on there. The ego mind, and that component of mind or psyche. This is interesting. When you start to look at it, you're like, wow, what do we do? How many times have you seen people's ego out of control? Emotions, and the emotional body, and the energy of it, managing those things, self-control. How many times have you seen adult children, meaning behaviorally, doing the stompy dance, having a fucking hissy fit, because they have not developed themselves with regards to this key thing of emotion, dosing you with chemicals by the endocrine system, and then you have to effectively ride the crazy train of the chemically induced emotion, manage yourself, control yourself, and all sorts of other things involved in that. We're not taking the time to teach people and cultivate about this. In fact, in our ignorance of these things, we ourselves as a collective, parents, things of that nature, are damaging these components of their own developing children. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, and I'm not saying anybody's bad. I'm saying that we're doing this out of ignorance that has been almost forced upon us in a slow, underhanded, seemingly imperceptible, methodical kind of way, to the point where, well, look at what we're doing, and look at what we're not doing, and look at the evil that's here and what it's doing to us because of it. So grab yourself a pen, grab yourself a spiral-bound notebook. If you got a laptop, open up a notepad or a WordPad or Word document or whatever. And I'm going to list this out real quick, and then I'm going to talk through some of it, just so that you can see it. It might make sense for you. It's just a legal pad, not even a legal pad, a spiral-bound pad with some freaking hand notes on it. It's not going to take long to do it. And then as I walk through this, you'll be able to see it. And then maybe you can even add things to it. I'm talking a base level of what it is that we are not doing as a collective, as a species, perhaps you could say, that is quite literally providing the access points for the evil that exists here to take advantage of us, to lie to us, to deceive us, to cheat, to rape, rob, steal, pillage. All the stuff, damn near, is quite literally happening as a byproduct of what we are not doing and what we are not teaching our young, because this stuff needs to be imbued into developing children as well. Again, not saying anybody's at fault. If people listen to me and they didn't do this, I'm not saying you're at fault, that you're wrong, that you're bad, that you were deficient as a parent for doing. No. I think we've all gotten away from this. Or perhaps maybe we, I don't know, have these concepts ever been actually thought about and presented to the public? I just don't know. But when you hear what I'm about to say, if you write this stuff down and look at it and consider that, and I hate to sound like a fucking Scrooge or something, because I don't mean it in this way. I mean, if there was a way to pull all this off and still have a healthy balance of this stuff for children, why would I be against it? I think we're spending more time allowing our children to go out and play is good. It's necessary. I get it. But rather than taking the time, for instance, let's put it to you this way. If you can take a child and teach it music and to the point where by the time it's 6, 8, 10, 12, it can play Flight of the Bumblebee or on a violin or something, and do it reasonably well, and other such musical classics like that would just boggle the mind. How does this little one know how to do all that? Because you can take something as complex as music theory, and break it down and feed it to little bite-sized chunks to that little developing mind, And be amazed, be amazed, be amazed that before that child even matures, with those teachings, it develops skills and abilities far beyond the average mere mortal, so to speak, and can play Flight of the Bumblebee on the violin. You see where I'm going? So what I'm referring to are our humaning skills. And I think that these are things that might, when you really start to drill into each of them, and I'm not going to do that here, they're like Human 101, Human 102, if you think of it in a classroom, college type thing where through all four grades of college, you get, I don't know, Psychology 101, 102, 103, 104, or however that would work, kind of illustrating that each one is an advancement from the other, because those classes are taught in stages. It's just kind of an overlay. So I say Human 101. This is not advanced humaning, because can these things that I'm about to mention, can you get advanced and specialize in them? Well, sure, but I'm not talking about being a specialist in any one of them. I'm talking about, because we're humans and we have a mind, and this is a core of our perception and beliefs, we should probably understand how the mind works, how it operates, how it's compartmentalized, and how vulnerable our subconscious mind is to attack and programming. This sounds simple, but we're not imbuing this understanding into our children because we ourselves don't understand this enough. We ourselves do not understand what has been done to us through these things. So I'm wired, built in a fucking unique way. And when you put me through the level of pain and suffering that I went through, I started to fucking analyze everything. Why is this reality this way? Why is suffering so all pervasive? Why? And I started looking at various layers of the human condition, human evolution, human development, the layers of this reality, all this stuff. And there was one big thing I started to realize is, well, all this evil that we see here that you can point out, identify as objectively true, it's repeatable, it's observable. How it is we've stood around like a deer in the headlights without being able to identify what it is doing, what it's done to us. If we look at the world that we see in the degraded state that we're in, it's fucking crazy. Now, it is truly the devil's children that have brought us all here. It truly is. You have to understand who they are. You have to understand that, figure it out for yourself, trace back the history, and put that big puzzle piece together. But they are real, they live, and they exist. But you can't talk about them real deeply on this platform or say too much truth because, well, like Voltaire said, the French philosopher, I'm digressing, but it's a good point, to know who rules over you, simply find out who you can't criticize. Just sit with that. And if something comes to your mind of who you can't criticize, well, ask yourself why that might be. Why? Why can I talk about everybody else? I can talk about the Jesuits. I can talk about the Catholics. I can talk about the Republicans and the Democrats, the lefties. I can talk about this person and that person in this group and that group. But you can't talk about this particular group. Why? Why? Why, oh why? I wonder how many of you that hear my voice right now have been red-pilled on that subject matter, because I assure you, everyone on the planet needs to be. And I think the veil is coming down relevant to that. But again, I digress. Let's get back to the real point. What are we not doing? What are we missing? What are we not learning about ourselves? And what are we not teaching our children that we should be imbuing into them that are allowing the conditions that we experience to continue to persist? Would that be fair? What role or responsibility do we play in allowing these conditions to persist in our reality and continue to do this to us? So to get to the point of writing it down, right? I would write it down and then maybe put an underline under like the main subject and then have the bullet items just so you can quickly identify the major topic and then the subcomponents and then the major. So you got mind, and within mind you've got conscious, subconscious, and ego. Within mind, within the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, you have beliefs and you have perceptions. Then you have your emotions. You have your emotional body, that overlay, and the energy that comes forth from it. And through the emotions and the emotional body and dealing with that, the human develops self-control. And then you have the human psychology. And there's multiple aspects to this, but it's basically the amalgamation of mind and emotions combined together to make our behavioral patterns and things of that nature. Usually, I would say if mind and emotions are relatively well-balanced and stuff, psychology is going to be pretty well-balanced, but I may be off. But there's components of our very psychology. Since we're a human and we have a psychology, we should probably understand at a fundamental level how it operates so that some asshole that knows a bit about it can't come around and just like mindfuck you. Would that be fair? And where and when I can twist up your mind and get your emotional aspects in there, trigger things, I can get your psychology all twisted up and cause you problems and limit you in life and train wreck you and, these types of. So for us to understand how that works, for us to do things to educate ourselves about this so that we can protect ourselves and or at least recognize certain things when they happen for what they are. So the psychology has those multiple aspects that many of them tie to the emotions in the mind. Then there's the sexuality. And a component of sexuality is self-control and self-discipline, on top of proper education of adults and children about sex and sexuality because, humans, you just don't even, most of you, maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'd say most people don't truly understand the importance of sex and our sexuality. They just don't understand that it is an energy. It also requires the ability to manage it, maintain it, self-control, self-discipline. It's also something to understand that it is a generative force within us. It is truly our power to create life. In our pants, no less. Isn't that an interesting thing? We all kind of contain half the power of a quote-unquote God in our pants. Then together, when you come together, you can create life. And then the human will, understanding what our will is. Again, more developing of self-control and self-discipline. So as a child's coming up, when they're being taught about their mind and the components of it, what beliefs are, their perceptions, what all of that means, maybe a little bit about their subconscious. I mean, and I don't know how this would work right now. These are high level. I bet you there's a lot of people out there that know an awful lot about this stuff much more intimately than I do as far as the components that could break it down and be like, yeah, this is like somebody who knows music really well could take music and music theory and break that down into bite-sized chunks that we can give to kids. And then they teach that little mind as it's developing so that by the time it's 10 or 12, the child is playing Flight of the Bumblebee. With these subject matters about the conscious mind, possibly the subconscious, our ego, figuring out how we can, educate ourselves to this and see how they're taking advantage of these aspects of us that we don't understand, but then begin to learn how we can teach this stuff to our children. So it's being laid in foundationally. It's literally foundational information. And under the context of give me a child till it's 7 years old and I will give you the man, it alludes to the point directly to the fact of the first 7 years of the human child being their programmable state. So there's got to even be a specific focus on an understanding of the human development and some specific components that need to be built into the human child purposely so that they are foundational, like morality. There's a perfect one. And whatever else it is. But see, most parents will be like, well, I want to get religion in there. I want to get, Jesus. I don't think that that's appropriate. I think that a child should be cultivated and developed and allow them to explore that for themselves once they mature and find their own way spiritually. Because why should you teach them and indoctrinate them as a child to believe in a God that you can't see with, why would you do that? Why would you not teach them about spirituality in whatever way is appropriate so that when they get older and more mature and have a better understanding of the very being that they are, that they can develop some spiritual relationship with whatever it is that they decide is a higher power. But it doesn't happen that way. So the indoctrination process, I think we need to look at in a vastly different way and do things vastly different. And then there's the element of us needing to do inner work, because when we don't, that makes us all triggerable. Not all of us, but you get the point. It makes us emotionally triggerable, emotionally unstable, and it causes all kinds of problems when we're not doing the inner work, because we have generational trauma that's buried in the subconscious mind. We have our own existing life traumas that are buried in the subconscious mind. And to the degree that, for instance, makes someone triggerable or limits them, it's an element of control. It's a method to be able to control somebody in a certain way. And then education. So you got mind, emotions, psychology, sexuality, human will, inner work, education. And within mind, you got conscious, subconscious, ego. You got beliefs and perceptions. Within emotions is truly self-control, because there's a lot going on there. There's a whole lot going on with self-control, specifically with emotions. That's massive. That's probably the key thing to learn and develop, because all of these things within us are like muscles. We have to learn about them. We have to then teach the children, for instance, and teach ourselves and cultivate these aspects of us. And then on some levels, these aspects must grow and develop and mature with us. Take a 40-year-old man that's never developed self-control and then begin to teach him the aspects of self-control. Within a year or two, he might have the self-control of a fucking child. It's just an example because he's not very experienced at it. Teach a child self-control when they're young, beginning, so that as they get older and older, they start to learn and understand this. By the time that child is fucking 23, 24 years old, he's going to have levels of self-control that would make that 40-year-old, well, look like the child he is in that capacity, that underdeveloped part of him. See, it's these components that allow these assholes that know everything they know about human beings to manipulate us like puppets on strings. We're not taking the time as humans, and we're damn sure not taking the time to educate our children to learn this stuff and to teach this stuff. And because we live in a reality that is controlled by evil, we have to meet these minimum requirements or continue to suffer the same fate that we have always suffered. But when you think of education, you've got the trivium and the quadrivium that should be taught. It needs to be taught. These are components of learning that, for Christ's sake, the Pythagoreans developed, so that humans would then begin to learn how to use the components that are within them for logic and reason, inductive and deductive reasoning, figuring things out, coming to know the truth, ruling out preposterous notions and all kind, that kind of stuff. It gives you the tools to be able to use the faculties that you have within you. And people like the Pythagoreans and Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, They all made contributions to this stuff that we call the trivium and the quadrivium that gave humans the tools that they needed to understand more components of their reality or come to know them with the right tools. And that's just the base level. It goes beyond that. All this stuff I'm talking about are at, like, if you could say from 1 to 10, I think we should be at, like, well, higher levels that we are now. It's really hard to say because certain things have different levels of importance and different as far as their access to us and their ability to manipulate us, and different degrees of ease of manipulation. But when you look at the mind that of somebody who's unconscious and easily programmed, even as adults, somebody who is just running around with beliefs that were put in their head, and their perceptions are all twisted up because their perceptions are based off of false beliefs. What kind of experience of life do you think that human's going to have? And in a world full of deception, where these people are trying to program our minds and our heads with false, wrong beliefs, with their programs to keep us confined to their tightly confining box of perception and all that stuff. If we don't understand how we're programmed, if we don't understand how we operate, if we don't understand how our subconscious mind works, and these people know how to get through the 5% of us that is conscious and through any conscious filters we have, whether we're children watching cartoons or Disney, or adults that are 50, 60, 70, 40, 30 years old, plopped in front of the TV, fucking flipping through the channels, letting that happen to them. So if we collectively, and this is not saying it's going to happen, but it's sad because when you put this out there and you start to realize that this really isn't hard work, the hardest work for those of us that have never been exposed to it is teaching it to ourselves, and then beginning to teach it to our children every subsequent generation so that it's being imbued into them. That's how we progress forward. When we don't do these things, they devolve us, degrade us backwards, because we are not meeting the minimum requirements to be a human in a reality that is controlled by evil. It's not like something that we call God gave us these minimum requirements, like he gave us the 10 Commandments and stuff. No, it's not like that. It's look at the reality that we live in. Look at what they're doing to us. Now contemplate how it is that they're able to do to us what they're doing to us, and recognize that. When you start looking at that, it starts to reveal all these components of you that are non-physical that I'll bet most of the people out there haven't taken the time to do any work on, in the way that they've tried to chisel their abs, buns, pecs, all that kind of stuff. We take all this time to chisel the body and make ourselves look like Adonises or Greek goddesses or whatever we can with our tight bodies and our spandex and our this, that, and the other. And it's a shame because, while it's necessary, obviously, to keep the body in good shape, we spend more time on that narcissistic vanity, if you will, than we do spending that same time, or at least, I don't know, half of that time, fucking half the time, on the inner parts of us, on the inner development of the non-physical components of the very being that we are. As a physical being, your mind, consider what it is, the experience of the human experience contained largely the perception, the beliefs, the drivers of the human ass within the human mind. Wouldn't it make sense that we would be aware of the fact that, well, that's kind of important, and that we should do things to protect it and strengthen it? Same with the subconscious mind. I mean, these subject matters can go, for instance, psychology level degree, but I don't think we need that in order to function in this reality at a higher level that protects ourselves from the willful onslaught that we've endured with the psychological operations and the deception. Simply understanding various things, and then, just like self-control and self-disciplines, I don't know, would they be like abilities, virtues, also discernment. These are also things that need to be taught. They need to be taught. How do you discern? Discernment comes through education and experience. Those are the only two ways you're going to really be able to learn what truly discerning is. Firstly, knowledge. Now I can discern narcissists an awful lot easier. I went through a life of hell to gather that knowledge and information, and now it's a lot easier. So that's experience. It's a perfect example. Why discernment is so important. I mean, when you're in a realm where evil will literally lie to your face, it will behave in one way with another intention, and you may not catch with your eyes the deception. It may be something where you feel something. You can't put your finger on it. Being able to listen to that, discern that, and recognize that energy and discern it. Because, somebody's got a smile on their face. They're handsome, pretty, attractive, saying all the nice things. But somewhere down inside you, your gut's like, I got a weird feeling about this guy. Or your heart, that kind of stuff. Because those components of us are being put to the test every day by all the evil it does, all the things that it does to willfully deceive and all those other such things. So when you look at it, we're talking like human 101, human 102, maybe up through human 105. And it changes the dynamic of how we raise our children, how much free time they have versus time with education. And I'm not saying that from a fuddy-duddy perspective. I know they're children. And I get it. But this stuff, since it's not being incorporated into our children at the levels where their minds are most receptive to learning, for these things becoming a part of them as a foundation, so it will always be with them. I was a child that was spit out into this world with no fucking foundation at all whatsoever. And when I look at what it is I had to go through, I'm not complaining, but it's just a lot of work, a lot of learning, years and years, a lot of genres of stuff, a lot of, my own experiences too, because I was never given that foundation. The foundation for the human child, being imbued into it by the only two people that would otherwise care about it and know that it needs it because they see that the reality that they're in is like a friggin' jungle, so to speak, So think about it. Mind. Conscious mind, subconscious mind, ego mind, and how important those components are. And then what's within the mind, the beliefs and the perceptions, how those are formed, how to protect them, all that stuff. And part of that comes from teaching trivium stuff. So you learn how to get an accurate bead on reality, how to decipher the truth, how to come to know it, how to logic and reason through it. All of that stuff. So that education with trivium and quadrivium during the childhood developmental process helps to empower the child with the tools to protect its beliefs, to protect and guard its perception, to develop discernment, because it has knowledge and it can, work through a scenario and come to realize whether or not it's being lied to or not. As an example, also, self-discipline, self-control. How many parents? I'm not faulting parents. I'm not saying parents are bad. None of what I'm saying here is throwing parents under the bus. I'm pointing at humankind and what we're doing collectively. So I have no judgments in this way. I'm speaking from the perspective of a philosopher, possibly a perspective of a teacher, whether this is really lessons or not, as much as it's just sharing information for you to contemplate and consider what's going on. Consider the world that we live in and what's happening to us for not meeting these minimum requirements of knowing about these things. I want to run through it again. Mind, conscious, subconscious, ego, beliefs, perceptions. Emotions, the emotional body, and the energy contained within it, why that's important in an attraction-based reality. And that ties into subconscious mind, where emotional energy could be stored. And if we're not consciously aware of the emotional energy that's stored in our subconscious mind, if there's emotional energy stored in our subconscious mind that was passed down to us through generational trauma and generational energy, it would only make sense that we would learn about this stuff, because the subconscious mind is what truly interacts mostly with the quote-unquote field. It's necessary. See, we're not even aware at a conscious level, most of us, of how we interact with the very reality that we live in. We have much to learn. None of it rocket science. It's just newer. Some of it might be even obvious when you say it, but it's not until somebody impresses it upon us that we realize, and then maybe bullet items some things out where they can show it to you, where you can look at it and be like, yeah, wow, look at what's happening to people and their beliefs. Look at what's happening to humans with their perceptions. Look at what's happening when you understand how the subconscious mind works, why it's the prize for these people. They can get anything they want just about through your conscious mind, through your conscious filters, when you're unaware of this, into your subconscious mind. And once it's in there, you're going to have an awful lot more of a challenge getting it out. That's a serious concern. It's something we should know about ourselves and take diligent steps to educate ourselves, protect ourselves, learn what we must do to make it so that because people, it's so easy for them to mindfuck everybody. It's so easy for them to cause chaos because everybody believes different things. Religions teach us different things. So when you got religions that teach each other different things, you can get chaos there with religious wars. When you got people who have different beliefs, you got problems there because nobody's going to be on the same fucking page. And good luck with all of that at play, getting everybody unified on just about everything. And I think if Jesus could do it with this at play, no, he wouldn't have been able to do it. Meaning if he could have spoken to the whole world. Same with Buddha, just using those examples. If those two people, those two characters, weren't able to get the whole world on the same page, considering what they were in that context, it's like any of us mere mortals aren't going to be able to do it. And I think the root of it is we're all at such different levels. We all have such different beliefs. We all have such different moral value systems, which is another major problem in this world. If in the education we started teaching trivium, quadrivium, and morality, as it would be so, and then figure out a way to teach a child the difference between its conscious and subconscious mind. There's ways that people who understand this could probably create lessons and things that would help children to identify this stuff, do a little work with it, become familiar with it. And you know what else would be interesting, relevant to emotions and self-control, is if we started putting in there meditation, so that we always had the tools to go inward and understood how to center ourselves and such things. Like, seriously, this is not rocket science. It's just a lot of work. It's all on us to do it. This is where we can't point the finger at the evil pricks, because in some form, you can almost look at it, it's like if they weren't there doing what they're doing to us, what would motivate us to be driven, if any people will be, to make these changes I'm talking about? Again, I'm just high leveling it. If could really go deep on all the reasons why we need to learn about mind, conscious, subconscious, ego, understand the importance, the fucking importance of beliefs and perceptions, discernment, self-discipline, self-control, and how those virtues need to be taught to children at a young age and applied relevant to emotional energy, sexual energy, human will, inner, all this stuff. I think inner work is on the list because I think it's an integral part of the work that humans must do. If our experience and our reality is to change. If we do not do this, we continue to imbue our children with the unhealed traumas contained within our being. When father and mother who have not healed those traumas come together, the energy of mother and father blend together. And that's passed down onto the child. And if we're having children from the lower three chakras, and there's no love between the parents at the same time, and they're getting passed down the trauma energy, the toxic energy, the stuff that's contained within the parents' subconscious that was passed down to them, this is work that we are obliged and obligated to do if we're going to evolve, if we're going to change these things about us. Think about it. I mean, this gets into some stuff relevant to just not what the evil's doing. This gets into some base level stuff about how we interact with the reality that we live in, how our subconscious mind interacts with it, to understand what that subconscious mind is, how important it is to protect it, to fucking protect it, because your frequency comes from there, your base frequency, your beliefs, your perception, so much when you start looking at it from a perspective of childhood development. And I also think that we should teach young children, not 6 years old, but at some point along the way when it becomes much more apparent that they're becoming sexually mature, an understanding of childhood development so that as adults they understand that if and when they get to the point where they have a child, they must be very careful. They must take great care because, well, for all the reasons, I don't think we're imbuing this and impressing this upon our children collectively. These are foundational things that because we are the species that we are, we should know. We should know. And it's not at a genetic level, apparently, because we're not doing it. It's at a level of conscious awareness that requires that we do this, that requires that we meet these conditions or meet these minimum requirements in order for these conditions that we're experiencing to change. Are there more things? And I'm not trying to get uber complicated. I mean, but when I say this, are there more things that I'm not thinking about? Possibly. But I'm trying to think about it from a perspective of a base level of minimum requirements that need to be met so that the evil can't do to us what it's doing to us. What might those look like? How is the evil doing to us what it's doing to us? Well, it's going after our minds in all the ways that it knows how. It'll play on your ego and all kinds of stuff. Hollywood, it plays on egos. You're so wonderful. You're a star. It manipulates our beliefs. It manipulates our perceptions. It manipulates our emotions, which affects our emotional body, our expression of ourselves. And if we're never taught self-control, then they can easily stimulate us into Karen-type conditions, as one example. They can twist up the psychology really easy. It just doesn't take a whole lot. Just traumatize the little bastards a little bit. Look at what they can do to the sexuality. It's been being done for thousands of years. That comes from trauma and abuse and things that ought not exist, but they do. So since they do, we must teach our children. We must root these things out to protect our children, because if we don't, the demons are going to do horrible things to them where and when they can. And when you think about sexuality and how important that is, the sexual energy, the creative generative force within us to create life, the power of the sexual energy, when it's not expressed, that it can become destructive. Just there's so many things that, because this is the type of being that we are, we should have a better understanding of these things. Think about what I'm saying. To me, it just sounds logical. It just fits. And whoop-de-fucking-do for me that it fits and it's logical. Great, Keith, you got it all figured out. How the fuck do you get this through everybody's head? How the fuck do you get this in front of everybody and then get everybody on the same page with an awareness of how we've been taking it on the chin, and that these are the things that we're not doing? And if we did these, I don't care if you're fucking Madagascar, a Jigaboo tribe, all the way up to, high level, whatever you'd call it, Prince Pauper or Prince Pope, socialite, whatever, if we all did this stuff. But, I mean, honestly, when you get to those levels, they're all mostly the evil fucking people. I'm talking about the common person, because those are the people we need to protect ourselves from. But strangely enough, when you start to look at this as a holistic thing, it's like, damn, due to the evil being here, it makes it so that we have to meet minimum requirements. And if we actually just met them, it would be like an evolutionary leap in consciousness. The requirements that the requirements that we are not meeting, that allow for the conditions that we're experiencing to actually happen and occur, I think are most easily stated that it's what we don't know about ourselves and the lack of work that we've put into, coming to know ourselves. Knowing yourself is multiple levels. This is just one layer of it. There's a lot more to knowing thyself. Once you get into inner work, it just opens up from there. But this is a big chunk of it. To know thyself is to understand your mind and how it operates. And there's levels of mastery to that. It's understanding your emotions and how they work, how they operate, how those chemicals feel. And possibly people achieve mastery of that. There's sexuality. There is things that we can do with this sexual energy. And it's not from a black magic, dark overlord, oh, that's evil. No, it's a generative creative force that we have within us. And that if we understood how this worked, if we understood our sexual energy better, things like anking it back in, not spilling the seed, other such things, instead of running around here down in the third chakra, humping like bunnies, masturbating to porn, dumping it all out, and just wasting. And we don't even understand what we're wasting. Because we're not taught. Because we're not taught. And we can point the finger at the people who've been hypersexualizing our societies. Yes, we can. But how is it that they've been able to do that? We've been ignorant. We haven't been teaching our kids. We weren't taught. We didn't know. We subjected our kids to it and didn't know. It was on the TV and we never knew they put it on TV. There's just so many reasons. You can look at it. I see this from a perspective of, yeah, they're evil. Yeah. But if you look at it from the perspective of they're playing a part and they're beating us brutally in an effort to help to evolve us. And it's like, at what point do we recognize what's being done because we're an intelligent species capable of logic and deductive reasoning and analysis and intelligence and blah, looking ahead, looking behind, learning from the lessons of the past and not fucking repeating them? At what point do we take control of the reins of our own direction? And I don't mean it in a way that these transhumanists are talking about, where they're going to upload your ass to a mainframe AI computer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the inner evolution and development of ourselves as beings, because all of these components of us, the non-physical components of us, this is the stuff that's contained within the inner house. I mean, it's almost like if we cared about ourselves, if we actually gave a shit about ourselves, in a weird sort of way, all of us collectively, as a species, if we cared, we would, the people who specialize in these components would do the best that they could to bring to humankind the things that they can bring to bear relevant to, for instance, just these components of mind, emotion, psychology, sexuality, human will, inner work, education, and other such things. People who understand children really well, the developmental process. People who, from a context of the music teacher, that knows how to take music theory and all that stuff and break it down into small bite-sized chunks. There are people on this earth that could focus their specialized understanding of these components to develop what I would affectionately call a curriculum of sorts. Things to teach the adults and things to teach the children that must be imbued. See, we need to adopt different ways of being and living in a lot of ways. People don't want to hear this. Who the fuck am I to tell them? I get it. But if we want to experience a reality that is different, we're going to have to participate in changing it. And this stuff are the components that we're lacking and have not done anything with, that if we actually took the responsibility on ourselves, changed these components collectively, things would be vastly different. I mean, you could always say, somebody put a comment in my channel today, and I get what you're saying. You could, okay, once we get that new, let's say we all just evolved to this new stage of consciousness that you're suggesting, Keith. New level, new devil. I get it. But isn't that the way it works in an evolutionary process? Well, you completed that grade. You completed that phase. You got from that step, leap, to this next step. You're going up the ladder. And yeah, there's going to be new devils at every level. I get it. It's just the way it works. I mean, on the evolutionary journey, could there be a few levels where it's just like, there's no devils, there's no bullshit. You just kind of get to be, your soul gets to rest and you get to like live and experience cool shit. And then after a handful of lifetimes there, and it's time to go on to the next one, more fucked up challenges. And I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. But so all of this has come to me through all that pain and suffering, because of the way that it drove my mind to analyze and ask questions and ruminate and try to find answers. And I'm the guy that wants to find the truth. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care. I want to know the truth. And if some of that truth that I found when I started to observe it was, whoa, we're lacking an awful lot. And it's in our deficiencies of meeting these requirements, as evidenced by the evil that's here and what it's doing to us, that the conditions continue to happen, that kind of thing. Think about it. I think it's reasonable. If we could have 100th monkey where all of a sudden all humans just kind of shared one, got to a particular level of consciousness, not hive mind. Just that when, for instance, when the rats in the northern part of New York stopped eating the poison, something happened that gives rise to this 100th monkey thing, where the rats in the southern part of New York, when they started feeding them, they wouldn't eat the same poison. It's like they all started to know, and it wasn't like they came down 40 miles or whatever and told them all. It was this collective awareness that set in. Same thing with the monkeys on the islands off of Japan. They started to see that one of them started to wash off the, was it melons or coconuts, or wash something off that they were eating in the sand. And it was better for them to eat what they were or in the water, wash off all the sand, because they threw them something, cantaloupes, melons, something into the sand, which one of them, little baby one, as a matter of fact, just started rubbing it off in the water, and all of a sudden he was eating sand-free, whatever. And then another one started doing it. It was like monkey see, monkey do, and they all started wiping it off and realizing, or rinsing it off and realizing, what the hell, this is better. So they all started doing it. Well, when you heard me first say that, I said the string of islands off of southern Japan, they're far away from each other. There's no way these tiny little monkeys are going to swim from island to island to island to island and then spend the time to teach every monkey on the island. But somehow they observed that all those other monkeys started to exhibit the same pattern of behavior. So it's a phenomenon. Whether or not it applies for humans is a different thing. Whether or not they shut those genetic aspects of us off so that we weren't as connected to the field in that way, I don't know. It's speculation. But it would be nice if there could be a 100th monkey type scenario where this type of information just became all of a sudden apparent to us, obvious, so that without question, this is what we did. We knew, we understood that there were minimum requirements and that we're not meeting them. And since we're not meeting them, the conditions that we're dealing with are ever persistent. And again, like always, if you can prove me wrong, please do. If I have blind spots and I don't see certain things, please point it out. But I certainly think that I've acknowledged we'll probably never get everybody on the same page. And that's going to be one of the biggest hindrances to this. Even if you could get it in front of everybody and you're all like, yeah, that's logical. Good luck. I mean, just good luck pulling that off. We also have to get to a point where we're not collectively traumatizing the shit out of our children. That's kind of an issue. We should really look at the process for giving life to a child and what it means to raise a child in a different way, where we're consciously contemplating the creation of that child before it ever gets here. And we're, for instance, not doing it from the lower three chakras, that two people that love each other come together and all seven chakras light up, along with the energy of love between the two of them. The energy between them, if they've done the inner work and they've cleansed out that inner house, think about that. So if in this default thing I'm saying we need to do that inner work, I'm talking about before we start having children. Because if we don't, we're passing that down to them, literally burdening them with a level of dark baggage that maybe they didn't sign up for, so to speak. It's like a curse that's bequeathed from parent to child, generation by generation. And I think until one of us, meaning in the generational lineage, becomes conscious and aware of this and actually begins to do the work to heal that, if they get lucky enough to figure that out before they have a child, great. They do all the work, a lot less to maybe none of it. Who knows? Maybe they get to the point where it's all gone. And then when they have a child with another person, male, who's done the same thing, then you're talking two people that are clear of that dark subconscious baggage. And this is the perfect scenario. I'm not saying this is the way it happens here. And in this scenario, they both loved each other. They were coming from those, they met each other using, for instance, the upper four chakras. And then when they come together in union, all seven chakras light up. The energy of love is between them. There's no fucking deep darkness, really. The way I've explained that there is generation by generation that stores in the subconscious mind. They come together, do the deed, create the child. I just ask you to contemplate, what do you think that child would be like with all those conditions being met, rather than us thinking with our monkey mind and our animal mind and our animal instinct and getting our hump on because she's hot, he's hot, the buns are tight, and all the right curves and all the right places and spaces. I fucking get it. I'm a human. I'm a man. I understand how this works. And that's how they're getting us. Because if they can drive us into these lower level chakras, we start doing things that are detrimental from a species level perspective, especially when you get us doing it for enough generations. Look at the world, look at the condition of people in it, look at the hypersexualization, look at the rampant child abuse and traumatization of children, look at the rampant narcissism that's upon the earth, and never forget, as demonic as these narcissists get in their behaviors and polarity, they were once innocent children, that when they couldn't defend themselves from the things that made them narcissistic, someone that was supposed to love them, care about them, nurture them, and cultivate them, abused them so fucking horribly. In most cases, there's some things to be said for neglect. There's some things to be said for spoiling kids rotten and turning them narcissistic that way. But by and large, the vast majority, in my assessment, my awareness, my knowledge, and my opinion of the ways in which narcissistic adults become narcissistic is because of the brutal, horrible childhoods that they were subjected to. That shows a massive fucking problem with one of the foundational things that we as a species should be masters of: how we're raising and cultivating our children. We're doing it with a lack of understanding of the human developmental process, a lack of understanding of the subconscious mind, a lack of understanding of how important the first stage of development is, and that everything's going into the child's subconscious mind because it doesn't have any ability to really critically think, analyze, and ask questions, and it doesn't have any filters. Therefore, everything goes in the subconscious mind. And how many young, I'm just grabbing a number, I'm not criticizing anybody, but how many young 25-year-olds, maybe just, they're still working their own shit out, go fighting with each other. Maybe it's not brutal, but they're still yelling and screaming, and it's just kind of like always fucked up. They're yelling, it's always tension. Well, the kid at 2, sitting in diapers that you think is just there, goo goo gaga, playing with bricks and blocks and Legos or whatever they're doing. Well, that subconscious mind is like a recorder in the on position, and people don't get it. It can literally be something as seemingly trivial as that. Parents who are unaware. I'm not faulting anyone. If I'm faulting anyone, I'm faulting everyone. You know what I'm saying? I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, saying anybody's bad or wrong or anything like that. As an Aquarius, I'm trying to analyze humanity. We're like the humanitarians of the zodiac. And I guess I have a particular way of being able to look at the world and all of mankind, the conditions that we're in, what we're doing to each other, how we got this way, what's been happening to us, what are we not doing that's allowing this to be the case. I just have been focused on this. Life has fucking driven me to this. Figuring all of this out and sharing it with people may be some part of my life's purpose so that people can become more aware of the things that we haven't been aware of as a collective. Somebody's got to do it. I might be one of those meat sacks that's doing it. You fucking stumbled across me on YouTube. Whoop-de-doo. It's no big deal. I'm just a single meat sack that had to suffer like a hell to come to know, learn, and understand what it is that I do. I'm not saying I've got all the answers, and I'm not saying that I'm anything more than a stepping stone on your journey of learning, developing, understanding, and evolving yourself. That's all I am. My back is the proverbial stepping stone for you on your journey. I still have plenty of my own flaws, and just because I'm putting this out there and coming at it from this perspective doesn't mean I'm flawless or without sin or perfect or anything like that. I'm somebody that's suffered on levels that would break most people, like really, to come to know this stuff. And it's like, there's a part of me that's like, there's no way you're going to put me through that. And then I can see all this shit, and I'm not going to at least tell them, share it with them. And I mean, do you think just because I'm doing this monologue that this is all of a sudden going to become viral and spread across the world and people are going to be like, great Scott, he's figured it out? No, I don't expect that at all. I doubt this video will get much traction. People will probably think I think I'm so full of myself. Who am I to tell people how they should be and how they should raise their kids? That's just humorous. And somebody's got to do it, because look at the condition we're in and look at the conditions that we're allowing ourselves to be subjected to. I mean, if somebody with at least half the mind to do this and figure this out doesn't, who then? Who then? I'm going to make one request of you. If you've gotten this far, I've never done this, but I want to see something and I'll explain it to you. I'm going to ask you, if you've gotten to the end of this, to like the video. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is because it'll show me how many of you have gotten to the end. It's not about popularizing the video, though I think there's good information in it that would be beneficial to a lot of people to consider. What I want to know is, I understand the content here. I understand what's contained within what I'm explaining here. It's not going to save the fucking world, but I think you get the point. And I want to see how many of my subscribers that watch this actually get to the end of it. And you can show me that you've gotten to the end of it by liking it. Because not everybody likes the videos. I mean, it's usually about 10% of the people that watch will actually like your video if they do. That's usually the ratio I've seen. Clearly, you don't have to like it. It's not about that. It's about, or if you want to put your account, a lot of people like to lurk and never really let themselves be known. I understand. So if I was to say, hey, just put a comment in there or drop a 777 in the comment section so I know, there's probably a lot of people that are going to want to be lurkers, whether I'm asking for that or not. But you can always like the video. I've never asked for likes before. I'm not asking people for likes again. I'm doing this as a gauge. How many of you have gotten to the end? And for the single purpose of showing me that, I want to see how close to the watch ratio and the like ratio it might get, because it'll give me some indication of how many people actually listened to the end, so that I know that you actually heard everything I said, so that at least it's floating around in your mind right now. Whether you agree with everything or not is a different story, but at least it was able to be put into your conscious mind to contemplate and to consider. Anyway, that's what I got, people. Take it easy.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.